Alright guys, welcome back to another E3 Rewind. And we're going to be talking about Adr1ft. This is another game that kind of caught me off guard at E3. Wasn't really expecting this game. I don't even think I saw a trailer prior to E3. I don't even know if there was one out prior to E3, but I definitely saw it during E3, and I also saw a gameplay trailer. It was probably a good, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes of gameplay. And when I first saw it, I was like, okay, I don't know if I'm really going to be into this game, but I'll check it out. And then by the time I was done watching this trailer, I was blown away. Once again, this game took me on an emotional journey. And that's kind of where this commentary splits into, two distinct parts. And yes, we're going to be talking about Adr1ft, and we're going to talk about the gameplay in just a second. But before we get to that, I want to talk about the balance between AAA titles and then every other game out there. I think we are trained, especially because all the media and Twitter and Facebook and all this kind of stuff, we're trained to focus on the AAA titles all the time. Those are the ones that are supposed to deliver. Those are the $60 games. Those are the ones that have quote unquote max value, placed on them. And those are the ones that have millions and millions of dollars, on them as well. But I think we fail to realize that those are the ones that have the ability to let us down the most, right? And in fact, we're finding that most of the time they do, right? And so I often wonder, why are we placing so much value on these games when the gamble is so high that they let us down for the money that we pay? And I think if you're a gamer out there and you really want to experience games, you really want to get in there and be emotionally connected to some of these games, to some of these characters, to some of these storylines, I think you're cutting yourself short if you're only playing AAA titles. If you're only playing those 1 or 2 big titles a month, you're playing about 20 games a year and that's it. These sometimes 8-hour campaigns, sometimes 40-hour campaigns, that's all you play. And I'm not judging you. You can play what you want to play. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here. I think you're cutting yourself short. I really think that the smart play here is to get out of your comfort zone and get out there and experience a game that's not something that you've heard about before. Play something different, which kind of brings me to the second part of this commentary, which is Adr1ft. Adr1ft is a game that takes place in space. And from what I know about this title so far, basically what's happening is that the Earth is going through a period of lifelessness, right? And what we've done is we've taken technology up into space, and we have figured out a way to get oxygen from plants. Not only can we have plant life in space, but we have figured out a way to draw oxygen from those plants, and we're going to use that technology and harness it and basically allow us to colonize the moon. From what I can gather from articles and interviews, the year is 2037, so not too far ahead in the future. And you wake up in space, you have no memory of what's going on, and your only goal is to get home. Now, what I think is the coolest gameplay mechanic in this title is the fact that you are in zero gravity the entire time, from according to what they're saying in interviews. Now, that may change. I don't know how the ending of this game is, that there may be a point where you're not in ZeroG, but from what I can gather, the whole game takes place in ZeroG. Now, I actually just played Dead Space, and there is ZeroG rooms in Dead Space where you fly from wall to wall, but this is different. This is the whole game having that floating mechanic throughout the whole thing, right? And there's even parts where they show where the spaceship that you wake up on is actually destroyed, right? And obviously you wake up with no memory, so you don't know how it got destroyed, and I'm sure that's part of trying to figure out what happened, right? But you actually go through and you're doing your ZeroG thing, and then you open up a door and you're in space, right? So maybe you're in a tunnel. The tunnel is split into 2 parts. So you go from tunnel to space to tunnel. And I don't know, even when I was watching this, I mean, I could feel it. I was like, oh my God, I'm in space. How awesome and creepy is this at the same time? Now, the other day we talked about a game called Abzu, and we talked about the fact that when you're on these emotional journeys when it comes to these type of games, there has to be something that connects you to the world, something that you can interact with, because these games don't always have tons of NPCs and side quests and all that kind of stuff. It's just an experience. And in this game, they interact with you through audio logs and logs that are coming from Earth, you know, signals that are coming from Earth, and also your breathing mechanic. So let's start with the audio logs. As you're going through this dismantled ship, you will come across audio logs. You can pick those up and listen to all the other people that were aboard the ship with you. Obviously, these are people that you cannot remember, but you will get a sense of who they were, their characteristics, you know, maybe what role they played on the ship, and maybe if they know you or not, and maybe if they can give you an idea of what happened to the ship before it obviously got broken up in space. Then you'll also be able to hear Earth logs. I don't know if that's going to be maybe distress signals, or if you're thinking in terms of NASA and being out in space, maybe there's a hub station down on Earth that's trying to communicate with you, trying to see if you're alive. They didn't really shed too much light on it, and I couldn't pick up on that during the gameplay trailer, but I'm thinking that's probably where they're going to be going with the Earth logs. And then the breathing mechanic. Now this was quite cool. I actually read the comments underneath some of these videos, and to some people the breathing mechanic got on their nerves. They were like, oh my God, I'm tired of hearing this person breathe, right? It's so annoying, because what happens is when you get to about half your oxygen, you know, you're breathing at a pretty normal pace, and then it kind of starts getting faster and faster and faster. And then when you get to, I think it's in the bottom right hand side of the screen, you can see your oxygen. When you get down to like that last little bit, you're like, I mean, you're panting, and you're really trying to get some air. And a lot of people thought that was nerve-wracking, and you know, it was just got on their nerves. But for me, it added that tension that I think is needed in a game like this, because without that mechanic, you just wouldn't feel as connected to the world, right? Because that's all you have out in space. You have to have that oxygen, right? You have to have it or you die. Now what's cool is that along the way you can pick up these air canisters, and you basically just put them up to your, kind of in your mouth area. I'm sure there's like a valve on your, you know, your gear or whatever that you can put them in and twist, and it gives you more air, but only to a certain point. And that's because your spacesuit is actually been messed up, and you can only have so much oxygen. And as you progress through the game, you can have more oxygen as long as you stop by and you visit these little machines that can repair your suit. Now, because you're in ZeroG, you're obviously going fairly slow because, you know, you're out there in space, but you have these boosters that are on your suit as well that can let you go a whole lot faster through space, right? But they do take away your oxygen, so it's a risk reward thing that may or may not pan out for you as you're trying to find your way home. Another thing that I found really interesting about this game was that it was gorgeous. I mean, yes, you're out in space, and you know, that is gorgeous enough because Earth is the backdrop, which is really cool. But there are these moments where you're going through the tunnels or whatever, and there's, you know, leaves and stuff growing around, and you can see plant life. And there's one part where you go inside of this dome area, and there's just a freaking tree there, which is amazing, right? And these are all things that you're so used to seeing on Earth. Now you're in space, and they're still there. So it does kind of give you that sense of being at home, yet you're trying to get home. And I thought that was a good contrast in the way that I should feel as I play this game. It's crazy because I was actually reading the comments, and a lot of people are saying, oh, this game should be VR. And I think we all can see VR kind of coming up on the horizon. I still don't think it's quite there yet, but I know that some of the VR stuff is supposed to be released next year, and we'll see how it goes. But I was thinking to myself, yeah, this would be a pretty cool game for VR. And then I go to a couple of other articles and I'm watching some more videos, and guess what? They were trying out VR with this game. This will be a VR compatible game. Now, how cool would that be to put on your little VR goggles, as crazy as you might look in the privacy of your own home, but be in space. Be in space and be fighting for your life in space. That is freaking cool. Now, just like with games like Journey and Abzu, I do think that the length of these type of experiences are very important. I think if you go too long, then you end up having a boring experience, right? I think that 2 to 4 hour mark is probably the right length, and I was happy to find out that this game is the same. It's supposed to be beat in less than 4 hours. It's a one sitting type experience. You're in and you're out, you know what I mean? The good thing is that you do get multiple endings based on the narratives that you pick up in the game via the audio logs and the Earth logs. I'm sure that some of that stuff doesn't trigger unless you visit parts of the ship. Obviously, if you don't find certain audio logs, I'm sure that would affect the way that the game ends as well. But that's great because even though it's a 3 to 4 hour experience, you can play it multiple times and get a different experience out each time you play. So I don't know. I guess for me with E3, and I'll have more games like this coming up too in these E3 rewinds, is yes, I love the AAA titles. Absolutely, man. My Uncharted's and the Fallouts and all. I mean, yeah, who wouldn't? But I'm telling you, man, there was something about this E3 that took me back to, hey, why do I really play games? You know what I mean? Is it just to shoot a bunch of stuff? Because that's what a lot of AAA titles are right now. It's really, I'm not going to say complicated mechanics, because once you play a game, you learn a game. But you're using every single button you have on the controller. Sometimes you got to hit 2 or 3 buttons to do an action, and you're in menus and out of menus, and there's overlays all over the screen, and pop-ups and NPCs and side quests and collectibles, and you got all this stuff going on, right? And I think there's a time and a place for that kind of experience. But then you have a game like Abzu, you have a game like Adr1ft, you have a game like Journey, which I played a couple years back and thought it was absolutely fantastic. These games have simple mechanics. They're not even stressful to play. Heck, they're even relaxing to play. There's no overlays, all over the screen, and no complicated game mechanics. It's just you in that world and an experience, And I think that if you're truly out there to experience games and really delve into them, you have to have a balance between the AAA and then everything else. I think that you should be playing those AAA titles, but at the same time, you got to you got to open up a little bit to some of these experiences. So maybe some of you have never heard about Adr1ft, and this is the first time that you've seen it, just like it was the first time I saw it. And now it's very high up on my radar of games to play. So like I said, man, I encourage you to take a look back at E3 2015 and check out more than just the AAAs. See what you can experience. Get out of your comfort zone. See what's out there, and I think you'll be surprised. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about Adr1ft, and I'll see you guys right back here tomorrow.